G'day Reefers, I'm Cam the Fish Guy. Thanks for watching Gallery Aquatica TV. Today we're back at Acro Dream Tank. This tank is one of our most popular tanks. It's absolutely beautiful and there's been some developments with this tank of late, so today we're going to take you through it. Here's Acro Dream Tank. Standing in front of Acro Dream Tank, you can't help but be impressed by the fish in this tank. They're incredibly friendly, there's lots of them and they're all a good size. We sometimes have comments about the fact that we don't focus as much on the fish in our aquariums as the corals. So let's have a look at the fish in Acro Dream Tank. So the first fish that I typically notice in this tank are the angels. Now we have a beautiful emperor angel, which is in its adult coloration, but it's still a relatively small size. And that's one of the things that makes it so nice. It's really bright and it's really healthy. There's also a Scribble Angel, which is seemingly getting along very well with the Emperor Angel. And I think one of the main reasons for this is the fact that there's so many hiding places, there's lots of coral, and it's certainly a large tank. But there's also a pair of Genicanthus angels. Now, these guys they've been here for quite some time and they're getting quite old, and they have unfortunately suffered a couple of injuries. And the male has unfortunately lost one eye, but he's still doing okay. The female has had her fins probably bitten, but she's still surviving and she's still eating. So, you know, we've chosen to leave her in here. There's lots of little schooling fish, and the chromis I think look particularly good. They're a bit of a basic fish, but because of the height of this tank and the fact that they swim around the top, they really contribute to the overall look of the tank. But the schooling fish in this tank that are really the standout are the Disbaranthius. And these disbars are absolutely huge. They've got these really long trailing ventral fins. They show really good color, particularly after the water change. There's probably more males than females. In fact, I think they're all males, but the color when they're excited is sensational. There's also, as you'd expect in a tank like this, some very nice tangs. And there's quite a large blue tang. There's a powder blue, and there's also a lipstick tang. Now, one of the reasons why these tangs are doing so well in this tank is because there's quite a large UV sterilizer system. So there's two 57 watt units, each of which would in itself be adequate for this tank. So to have the two UV sterilizers really helps to have healthy white spot and velvet free tangs. There's a rabbitfish, a Corallianus rabbitfish, one of my favorites, and the blue spots on the yellow background looks really, really good. There's also a few other fish, the wrasse. There's a cleaner wrasse, there's a Melanurus wrasse, and a few other things like that. So that's pretty much the makeup of the fish. Let's have a look at the coral and how it's changed over the 2 years that we've been documenting this tank. So the first version of this tank was actually an Aquareef 400, and that tank was running for quite a few years, and in that time Palithoa were introduced on purpose because of the colour and the fact that they're an easy coral to keep, and they've kind of just become entrenched in the tank, and they've grown over a lot of the rocks, but they've become a bit of a problem. And so the goal in the last couple of years, whilst this tank has been running, has been to cover them up and to really eliminate them from the tank. And surprisingly, one of the things that has been used to shade and cover the Palithoa is this red plating Monty. And so this Monty has been doing particularly well in this tank. It's growing really quickly. It gets really bright with a really nice white edging, and so we've used that by fragging it and gluing it over top of the palithoa. And this section here was entirely palithoa, growing out of control, and you can see that they're being shaded out really effectively by the Montipora. Let's have a look at the stags, because the Acro Stags in this tank are really the feature. So we have this light green stag, and it has these sort of peachy pink tips on the leading corallite, and it looks really good, especially given the fact that it's quite a thick branched Acropora. And we have it in 3 different spots of the tank. You can see this one over the back here has actually suffered some die-off. Now the reason for the die-off, we believe, was a sting from a free-floating tentacle from one of the Aphilias, but it started to get quite bad, but with a bit of an improvement to the water quality, it has recovered and it's growing back quite well. We do, of course, have a large Dallas colony right in the center. Now, this colony has been moved a couple of times, and somehow we've been able to balance it on that single stem on the rockwork using lots of epoxy, and it is really a feature. It looks like a bonsai or a tree sitting up on the rock, and it looks particularly good. The blue stag is probably my favorite, and this is in a few different spots of the tank. You can see how light and bright the lead corallites are. They're this really nice blue. Now this coral, this acro, grows very, very quickly, and it's almost like a blue Dallas in the way it grows. And so it's going particularly well in this tank, and it contrasts beautifully with this other large, I'm going to call it yellow stag Acropora. So we'll have a look around the other side, because the other side is where the Monties are doing the best. This Monty colony is an absolute beast. It's growing so quickly, and in fact, the growth rate is probably its biggest issue. It's almost at the point that its weight is going to cause it to break free of the rockwork, and we've taken several frags of this. We've put it in other tanks. There's a frag of this at the shop even, in my display tank, but it's a beautiful shape, and personally I'd like to leave it here as long as possible. Now down the front here, this is actually a legacy coral from the very first tank. This Dunkanops samia has been through absolutely everything with this tank. It's probably been running in this tank for, well, probably 7 years since the original Aqua Reef, and it's doing really well. I like the fact that it's a legacy coral, and it's quite large and it's nice. It's a nice front to the tank. The bird's nests are also a real feature of this tank. Bird's nests add a texture that you really can't get with many other corals, and so this one's growing quite well. We've also got Leptocerus and more of the red Monty. There's a bit of a Euphilia garden over this side, and they're probably being shaded out a little bit by the acro there. That reverse stem is probably needing to be moved at some point. We've also got more of that red Monty. It grows so well and looks so good that we've put it in a few different spots around the tank. And we've got another bird's nest. And so this bird's nest is a particularly large, particularly nice piece, and I love the way it's positioned on the rockwork. So this tank has been running for around about 2 years, and in that time we've always been very strict with our regular maintenance. We do a 50% water change once a month. We aim to check the water at least once a week, but some of the problems that we have encountered in the past have come from the fact that we don't always get the opportunity to check the parameters as much as we would like. This tank has gone through a number of algae problems, and some of those have corresponded with some a drop in like the KH, an increase in the nitrate and phosphate and the like. So we really try and be very strict with our maintenance regime, and so the tank is really thriving at the moment. So that's pretty much it for today's episode of Gallery Aquatica. We hope you've enjoyed this update of Acro Dream Tank. We'll have lots more updates of other tanks in the future. So I'm Cam the Fish Guy. Happy reefing.
So that's our video for today. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe as well. We'll be putting out videos every week showing a new tank with new products. There's going to be lots in all the videos. I'm Cam the Fish Guy, and keep on reefing.